Ladies and gentlemen, welcome wrestling fans worldwide to Knoxville and the Great Smoky Mountains for the Ron Fuller, Tennessee Studcast.
6 feet 9 inches tall, 265 pounds.
This historic podcast from one of the most respected and successful wrestlers and promoters will follow the footsteps of the largest and oldest wrestling family on the planet.
Listen to what I'm saying. That's right. Bring that camera in here a little bit closer.
Through 93 years and 4 generations.
The stud has arrived.
Old school or new fan, this unique broadcast will educate and captivate as Ron details decades of professional wrestling's growth with truly unforgettable stories.
I want those people out there at home to hear the stud.
Sit back and enjoy the ride with the Tennessee Stud.
The Tennessee Stud. You will learn that name. You will remember it.
And now,
the stud is here.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome in. It's David Summers hosting another Studcast with the Tennessee Stud, Ron Fuller. It's the story of wrestling in America as told by the stud, whose family started the profession 100 years ago. Now we step back into the ring and back into time, into the Great Smoky Mountains, where there ain't no hoss like the Tennessee Stud, Ron Fuller. Ron, what's going on?
Oh, geez, man, great to be back. Feels like it's been a long time since we did one of these, man.
Yeah, what were you thinking, Ron? 230 episodes, you feel like you need to take a week off. What is that all about?
Gee, man, I don't know. Can't imagine that, right? I hope it's not going to be another 230 before I take another one off.
Listen, I can't believe you've been literally 230 episodes. You've never missed a week. And here we are on episode number 231. So what happened last week? What did you do? Oh,
geez, man. I just really I got some spare time. I went to the gym a couple of extra times. I did some crazy things like that I haven't done in a while. And but it was really nice. I enjoyed a little bit of a break. And wow, a couple of days ago, I guess just after the first of the year, we got this big snow. And,
I thought I saw it coming through. So you got some of that.
Oh, wow, Dave. Man, unbelievable, man. I mean, I've seen snows before, but never up in the mountains like this. And it's just, wow. It was just freaky beautiful. I've never seen anything like it, man.
Did it make you want to get out and ride around?
Well, I haven't been out and rode around yet, but I'm thinking about doing a little bit of that today, just to see kind of what it looked like. It's been on the ground here for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But there's so many different types of trees here that have all been covered in snow, and it's pretty remarkable.
Beautiful. And of course you're used to it, and you've seen the leaves change colors as we've been through the year, and so now when it snows, it's an entirely different look for everything that you see.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's like a true winter wonderland, man. It's like really picturesque.
That's
awesome. I'm going to put one. I'm thinking about putting a picture of one of those shots, maybe on my social media sites today, so fans can get an idea of what the Smoky Mountains looks like covered in snow.
Hey, do that. I think that'd be cool. All you need is a scarf, stud. No. Okay. All right.
And I need myself a pretty big coat, too.
Yeah, you may want something like that. All right, so listen, it's been a couple of weeks, so I think we've got a pretty big task as we head into episode number 231, and you haven't taken a break in 230 weeks until this last couple of weeks. So the task is, Stud, we got to get you over.
Oh, geez, man. Yeah, I feel like I forgot how to do this, maybe.
I'm gonna do Dusty Rhodes. I got to get you. You got to go. You got to go get over. You got to
I got to get over.
You're gonna go get over, Stud.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think I still got the hang of it. And I'm looking forward to this one, Dave, because we're going to change our format a little bit. We're going into a period of time that's totally different than anything we've done.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of what our focus is going to be on today.
All right, hey, let's get going. And listen, we hope everybody's had a great Christmas and New Year's. And, of course, we're beginning Southeastern's next year, literally, as far as the timeline goes. It opened with a huge card, January 1st, 1978, exactly 44 years and 4 days before the release of this Studcast. It was Knoxville's first event of that year on New Year's Day, of course, in the Coliseum at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So how did it feel, Stud, on that day 44 years ago?
Well, it was very exciting, Dave. Obviously, we'd been doing some big crowds, and we're in the Coliseum. We've been out of there for a few weeks at the end of 77. And, and we got a huge card for this one, man. And we're going to have a massive crowd that day. And the Knoxville fans are going to all be celebrating the new year. I love those holiday events, which, it's just a totally different feel of the crowd. And Southeastern is expanding, man, in this time frame for the first time in its history. And soon there's going to be a second Southeastern territory in Pensacola, Florida, on the Gulf of Mexico, about 500 miles south of Knoxville, man.
All right, so listen, I know you had been searching throughout most of 77 for some place to go to take this incredible product that you had really put on the map in Knoxville to expand your business, to get out there. So I can only imagine what you were anticipating for 1978. I know you were, man, you had to be pretty bouncing off the walls, pretty excited about what might come.
Oh, man. I was on cloud nine, man. Some of the wrestlers on this new 1978 New Year's Day Knoxville card are going to be headed south with me, man. In 2 months, we're going to be bringing Southeastern wrestling to a totally different part of the country within 2 months of this match right here. So it was really an exciting time.
All right, so speaking of doing something different, Ron, that's exactly what we're going to be doing here today. Building a tremendous YouTube channel called Southeastern Rewind that is absolutely on fire. So are you happy with what's happening there? Tell us what's going on.
Oh, yeah, man. Everything is great there, Dave. For sure. The Continental TV shows, they've become extremely popular. And the USA TV shows as well. We had some real records. We set some real records last week. In the first day alone of the USA show number 9, we did more than 1,000 views in that day alone. So, we're getting quite a bit of activity there on the site, man. And people are really beginning to get into these TV shows. And both of those television programs were top notch, man. I mean, and they were filled with great wrestling talent and angles. And anyone that could tell you by simply listening to those things and just enjoying how loud and how extremely those fans were into all those TV shows, it's pretty darn amazing. The USA TV shows are soon going to come to an end because we only did 25 of those shows were produced in 1988. I had sold Southeastern Wrestling, the main part of the territory, in the fall of 1987. And so I made 28 shows with in the Knoxville area in 1988. The last one's going to end with this great angle. It's going to involve me. I'm finally going to end up in the ring on the last television show, which is about another 5 shows away. And wow, that one has a huge bang for the fans at the end of it. So don't be upset, though. We're going to finally begin, all those fans out there listening, we're finally going to start bringing you some of those original Southeastern Pensacola TV shows from the early 1980s. And we're going to go far back as the shows that we can find. We're still searching for other shows, and we're finding a lot of them. But back in those days, those shows showcased some of the best wrestlers in history, man. And for years to come, we're going to be adding these new TV shows. Every new Studcast is on there, as well as my stud stories that cover all different types of subjects, historical ones that describe some of my matches with 11 NWA world champions in my career, and other stud stories are about my true life and my history.
I was just thinking maybe Tony Basilio was the guy who was the first one to say, you are the storyteller. Listen, you told some stories. You told me some stories on my back porch here or on your deck down in St. Petersburg. So your storytelling ability is absolutely legendary. And I miss, if I miss one of those stud story episodes, it's definitely one that I always try to make up because there's so much historical content on there now. How many you got on? Is it 13 or 14 now?
I think we're around that 14 number, we're trying to put about 2 a week on there.
Yeah.
Different subject matter. So, we continue to grow there, man.
Yeah, and as we're heading that way, I can only imagine what Southeastern Rewind is going to be like years from now. So, fans, if you have not already subscribed, do it now. It's going to be a great decision into a brand new year. Go to YouTube, find Southeastern Rewind, subscribe, ring the bell icon. When you do, we'll ring your bell every time something new is placed on Southeastern Rewind. All right, that's an awesome deal. So where are we riding on this first Studcast in 2022, all about 1978?
Well, obviously, it's a brand new year, Dave, 1978. And gosh, that was an extremely unique year for me, the busiest, man, in probably my history in the sport as of this time frame. And it was the only time in my wrestling career where I was running one territory and developing another one at the same time. It's kind of like, it's wearing two hats at once, and gosh, man, it's going to be a ball of fire this year in 1978, and we're going to be focusing on two different territories. A lot of these studcasts this year. One of them, obviously, is the Southeastern Knoxville territory, which was an established territory, and it had become what many considered the best small territory in the world. And the other one, Southeastern Pensacola, was just beginning from scratch when this program that we're doing today and this first week in 1978, everything had yet to be done for Southeastern Pensacola, who I had to set up TV stations. They weren't all of them even there or set up at that point. I was contracting, creating relationships with the major buildings that I was going to be doing business with, developing TV programs similar to the Southeastern Knoxville's great program, handpicking the commentators for that show, handpicking the first crew of wrestlers, the initial stars, who are going to make an impact on fans that had never seen Southeastern before, and so much more, man. So I'm going to be doing something totally different this year with our today's training segments in particular, at least for the first couple of months. We're still going to train fans on each of them like we have been, but this new territory is going to allow us to really dig deep into how territories were built from the ground up. We've never had the chance to do that and to stick with the same subject matter. So I'm going to try to be the mentor to the fans out there, basically. I'm going to take them on a ride, man, with me each week on today's trainings and let them discover with me how I built my second wrestling territory. And it was done from January 1st, 1978 until the summer of that year. That's when Southeastern Pensacola territory became profitable.
All right, so I think this is really going to be fun, Ron. You're actually going to be taking us on a ride through the entire development of Southeastern Pensacola, just as if we were like part owners in the situation. Or so maybe we're the flies on the wall. So kind of like your brother Robert, Roy Lee Welch, Jimmy Golden, Bob Armstrong. This is really going to be cool.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna try to treat fans here in this part of the year that they are part of family, and they are part of my family. I mean, people have been following me here and kind of become great friends with lots of them, and this is it's more than just a podcast. It's a lot more than that to me, and this is going to give me the opportunity, man, to teach my Studcast fans how something was done, something like building a wrestling territory, from the purchase of it to the profitability till it started making money, and I'm going to talk about all the trials and tribulations along the way too, man.
Oh, you had bumps in the road? What?
Oh boy.
What? All right, so it sounds to me like the Studcast for 1978 are really going to be even better than the 230 Studcasts, if that's possible, that you've already done. All right, I am saddled up and ready for the wrestling education of a lifetime. So where are we going to begin this whole thing?
Well, we're going to start it with the first episode of today's training from the first week in 1978. It's going to begin with the first step in any new business. We're going to set up the company today financially and properly where it made sense from the very beginning. And I think it was an extremely important part of building a business is how you set it up from the very beginning. So we're going to begin today by filing for a subchapter S corporation in the state of Florida.
Okay, whatever you just said. Okay, all right. But first, why Florida? And wasn't Gulf Coast Wrestling set up in the state of Alabama already?
Yes, it was. Actually, my dad went there in 1954, Mobile, Alabama. That was the home of Gulf Coast Wrestling. And I'm going to change it a little bit, and there were reasons, why I picked Florida rather than the state of Alabama. Actually, there's three reasons, Dave. And the first one is because it was one of the most beautiful beaches in the world in Pensacola, Florida. And I was going to use that beach, man, to draw great wrestlers to Southeastern Pensacola, just like those wrestlers were going to draw the fans when they got there. I really loved that beach. From the time I went there, I couldn't figure out when I got there why my dad had gone 50 miles further to the west in Mobile, Alabama, where the water's still murky and dirty brown, when he could have gone 50 miles east to Pensacola and been on that beautiful beach. So I decided when I went there, Mobile was not going to be the place I was going to make my home. And I didn't think any other wrestlers were going to want to do that either. But boy, Pensacola it sucked them in there. That's a good way of putting it, I guess. I mean, the guys came there and they loved it. Okay, so
Stud, first, what did that have to do with where the corporation was actually established?
Well, Dave, oddly enough, it had pretty much everything to do with it. My other Southeastern corporation, obviously, was set up in Tennessee, still up there and operating. The Knoxville area was one of the most desirable places in America to live, man. It had beautiful mountains. It had these fantastic, pristine lakes everywhere, man. It drew wrestlers to it like they were going to draw fans to the arenas, man. And as time went on, lots of those wrestlers had their boats on those lakes, man. And they really got into it. They bought boats. They learned that really take advantage of how beautiful that part of the country was. So the Southeastern Wrestling Company had a reputation, Knoxville, for short trips, plus being able to live in a gorgeous part of the country. The talent we had developed in Knoxville, they came from far, far more than just the amount of money they were making. Many of those stars were there for the lifestyle as much as the money. They were there because of what that part of the country had to offer, man. The perks were so good in some cases, they were worth more than the money. I mean, they guys got to where they loved to ride those boats and be on those boats, and they were there a lot because they were not on a road somewhere traveling. So Pensacola had just as much to offer, if not more. I mean, there you had in Pensacola the crystal clear Gulf of Mexico waters, and if you had a boat, you could stick it in those waters, and wow, it was better than being on the lakes, and you had a beautiful beach to lay in the sun on. So I realized with what had happened in Knoxville that there was much more to offer wrestlers than just big money, man.
And the other thing, chicks dig the beach. So I've heard. All right, and listen, I got to tell you, this reminds me of Knoxville because Pensacola is a terrific location when you look at what's around. Okay, maybe you don't want to live in Mobile, but Mobile's still a great market. Or not far from Pensacola is Panama City. Not far from there is Tallahassee. So, and everything, even once you, even farther west into Mississippi, Biloxi. You had, and I don't know about territory, but it's a good central location to a lot of things. So it makes good sense to me. So I can see, Stud, what you're talking about. So what was the second reason for incorporating in Florida?
Well, Pensacola's wrestling also had the short trips, just as Knoxville did. And, adding cities to that territory, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Knoxville territory, was good. It was a good idea. But it wasn't a good idea if it's going to be meant for the guys to be making those 1,000-mile trips, 500 there and 500 back on a regular basis. So I realized right off the bat that I was going to destroy that short trip territory concept that Knoxville had created. And if I had decided to do that, we would have become what so many other large territories were in wrestling. We were going to have a life in a car. And I don't want our wrestlers to be just one more group of road-weary travelers like so many big territories guys were. They were just on the road all the time. They didn't get to enjoy being home. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them didn't have a beautiful place like Pensacola or Knoxville to be home to as well. So that's why I decided to split the two territories. And by splitting the two territories, I kind of preserved that unique short trip reputation, and it set up Pensacola for success, just as it had done for Knoxville.
Okay, so you were really putting a lot of thought into this whole situation as you were putting this thing together. So what was the third reason, obviously, for incorporating Florida and then living there also?
Well, Dave, do you know how many of the 50 states in America does not have a state income tax?
Listen, I was going to say which one. Okay, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead.
All right. So basically, only 8 out of 50 states in America don't have a state income tax.
Wait a minute. Wrestlers are that smart? Holy, I did not say that out loud. Listen, you guys were covering all the bases, Stud. So I mean, some of the stuff I was aware of, but some not. All right, but what about Tennessee and Florida? Are they amongst those 8 states?
Well, that just happened to be, man, pretty amazing, right? Yeah. I mean, so every wrestler and every person involved in the company, a lot of them weren't going to be aware of it, but by gosh, when it came time to pay your taxes, they were going to go, Ron, you're a pretty smart dude. So, yeah. So, that was my third reason. And, every wrestler and every person involved in the company loved it, man, when it came tax time.
God dang. They didn't know you were thinking about everybody in that situation. All right. So I can see these new 2022 Today's trainings about how Southeastern Pensacola in 1978 was built. I can see that it's going to be filled with some really fascinating facts like what we've been talking about right here today. So it's going to be extremely educational for all of our Studcast listeners. I think it's exciting and I know they're excited about being tuned in for something like this. So what will be in today's training subject matter in next week's Studcast? This was good, really good stuff this week.
Well, in next week's today's training, man, we're going to take it to another level, man. We're going to discuss the specifics of the sale of Gulf Coast Wrestling to Southeastern Pensacola. Mm-hmm. We're going to actually talk about the actual amount of money I paid for it, the gross dollar amount. We're going to talk about the deal itself and exactly how that money was going to be paid during the course of the deal.
I love this stuff, Stud. All right, I can't wait to hear how much you paid for Southeastern Pensacola. Are you actually going to reveal that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we're gonna break it down for everybody.
Oh, come on, you know how some people don't want to talk about that money. All right, but just like I said earlier, this is going to be a lot of fun. So where are we riding to now? What's going on?
Well, it's time to focus on the Knoxville card, obviously. I mean, we're going to be spending most of our time still with Knoxville, but we're going to be talking some Pensacola and Southeastern in that area every program from here on. And so we're going to right now focus on Knoxville and that great card on New Year's Day, January 1st, 1978, in the Coliseum. It was the 3rd annual 20-man, 2-ring, triple chance battle royal with $10,000 to the winners. Also, as a Southeastern Championship match on that card, champion Mongolian Stomper managed by Gorgeous George Jr. against Joe LeDuc. There was a Southeastern Tag Championship return match on that card with the champions Don Carson and the Assassin, managed by Ron Wright, against Robert Fuller and Thunderbolt Patterson. There were 5 more matches on that card as well. It was an all-time Southeastern record number of wrestlers so far on this card. 23 total guys on this card. So there were 20 men in the Battle Royal. And here's the 20 men in that Royal. Robert Fuller, Thunderbolt Patterson, Don Carson, the Assassin, Ron Wright, the Samoans, Tio and Reno Tafuli, the famous Sheik, the one from Ohio, Tony Charles, Jimmy Golden, Ricky Gibson, Roy Lee Welch, Ronnie Garvin, David Schultz, Mike Stallings, Jim Brunzell from the AWA, Byron Kidd, Terry Sawyer, Frankie Lane, and Big Jim Wilson.
20. Wow. That's a hell of a lineup. All right, so I noticed you called Mr. Knoxville by his real name, Ronnie Garvin. And listen, I know building up to it, it's been about clarification up to now, so everybody knew in the storyline. That's it. But was there another reason for that?
Well, this was his first Southeastern match since he got that win over Bob Orton Jr. In their second cage match, which was 2 weeks prior to this event on December 16th. He had gone home to Canada for 2 weeks, and he had beaten Bob Orton Jr. in their second cage match. It wasn't a loser leave town match, but Orton Jr. lost the cage match, and then he was carried from the ring, and he never wrestled again for a long, long time. He did come back to Southeastern, but it was years before he came back. And so in Ronnie's opinion, with his resounding victory in the cage and the fact that he was really only wearing the mask because Orton had beaten him in a loser leave town match, that was about 9 months earlier, he felt like it gave him the right to go back to being Ronnie Garvin again. So on the TV show that was to promote this card, which is the day before the card, it's the day Ronnie came back from vacation, he got on TV without saying anything about what he intended to do. And he sat right there with Les Thatcher, and he took his mask off and said, "I'll never wear this again."
Whoa!
And he explained his reason for it. That Bob Orton Jr. is the reason I wore it, and I had to wear it. And he's no longer here because I darn near killed him. And, and he says, "I'm going back to being Ronnie Garvin." So I guess he felt like it gave him a reason to go back to being Ronnie Garvin. And so on the TV show, after he removed his mask and he had his little say, I could see his thinking in a way. And after all, who the hell was going to tell Ronnie Garvin no?
All right, so, and listen, Ronnie Garvin, it's amazing to hear this story because at one point, Ronnie Garvin really didn't talk on camera at all because his accent was so strong and nobody could understand him. And
right.
I mean, it's amazing where he is now, and every bit of that is really with you. So that's just cool. So the old Ronnie Garvin is back, right? So
that's correct. But it pretty much had no choice about it, So yeah, right. Ronnie Garvin was back, and you're right, Dave. You made a real good point there. I mean, he had Big Bad John talking for him. He had other people doing his talking, and Rob and I kept pushing him and saying, Ronnie, you don't need these guys. You can do it yourself. And son of a gun, man, he now has all of that ability, and he realizes it.
Yeah, and you and Robert were, of course, y'all were putting the whole program together at the time and calling all the scenarios. And at one point, he even left, and you thought he may not come back, but he still comes back, and he's still a huge part of what's happening. And I think that's really cool. So, listen, the list of wrestlers you mentioned a couple of minutes ago was really a tremendous card when you're talking about 20 and of that caliber. There were quite a few guys on there that I had never heard of, though. Is there a reason for that, or is that you're introducing more folks to the market? What's going on there?
Well, yeah, there was definitely a reason for it. And, because this was a huge battle royal, it gave me the opportunity to put more guys on the card. And a lot of those guys that I stuck on the card that day, put them into the battle royal specifically, they've been waiting for an opportunity to get into Southeastern wrestling. Guys have been calling me constantly and trying to, get in because they knew money was really good, the trips were really short, and a lot of these guys I'd never even seen wrestle. So it also offered me a look at these guys. With not just an opportunity to maybe work in Southeastern Knoxville, but also now there was an opportunity for some of them to work in Southeastern Pensacola. That's going to be opening basically the first week of March in 1978.
And to me, one of the funny things that you've talked about over time is how wrestlers tend to talk. So when the good territory has really got it going on like you did in Knoxville, and now it's about to happen south of there on the crystal white sands of Pensacola. So word kind of gets around.
Yeah, there's a great old story about wrestlers, man. They say that wrestlers, you said something about wrestlers talking all the time. The wrestlers always used to say, you telephone, you telegraph, or you tell a wrestler.
All right, so who are some of the guys that you had never seen before that was not going, and who, if any, was on the card that would end up going to Pensacola?
Well, that's a great question, because there's about 5 of them on this card that aren't going to go anywhere. Jim Brunzell, who was out of Vern Gagne's AWA Minnesota territory, was a really young guy, just getting started. And he wasn't going because he's going to, pretty quickly after this event, he's going to start becoming a star in Vern's territory because he and Brian Blair are going to form one of the great tag teams of all time up there in that part of the country called the Killer Bees. So Jim Brunzell's out. He's not going to be going to Pensacola. Mm-hmm. Byron Kidd, Terry Sawyer, Frankie Lane, and Big Jim Wilson are 4 more that I really got a chance to see that day. I didn't know anything about them. Wasn't really impressed, and then they weren't going to be going. But there was 3 of them on this card that was going to be going. And one of those was Roy Lee Welch. And he's not only going to be going as a wrestler, but he's involved in the Southeastern Pensacola Partnership. And he's not only going to be a wrestler, but he's going to be doing a whole lot of other important things that have to take place to run a good, solid wrestling business. Mike Stallings, who's on this card, had already paid his dues, man. He had already gotten over in Knoxville in his previous run there. He hadn't been there for quite a few months before this battle royal. He'd been gone for a while, but by gosh, I looked at his match. I watched watched him in the ring. He returned in great shape, and he really impressed me with how much he was still over with the Knoxville fans. It was like he had never left. Mm-hmm. That told me a lot about Mike Stallings. And then the third one that's going to be going was and my grandfather's brother Herb Welch had trained him, and he was on the wrestler. He was one of those guys that was definitely going south to Pensacola. But he, like Mike Stallings, he didn't know it yet. I didn't tell him that day. I didn't tell him for quite a few weeks afterward. But that guy that got trained by my grandfather's brother Herb was David Schultz.
Whoa, okay.
And he was working mostly out of Memphis at this point, a young kid. But he was steadily improving, and he was already a hard worker in the ring. And by God, he was destined for a big future. I could tell that.
Oh, no doubt. What was this like as far as you releasing the information to the individuals who thought, God, I hope I'm on this list to go to Pensacola? Was it like back in the day? Did I make the team? Did I make the cheerleading squad? You have to go check the list that was on the locker room door or something. What was it like to tell these folks?
Oh, it was great, and I really, it was one of the great parts of owning a company and being in charge and being able to pick who you wanted to. I felt these 3 guys really deserved it, all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And we're going to slowly through this process as we're going to pick up and talk some about Southeastern Pensacola. And every one of these shows, we're going to be adding new wrestlers to this list.
Yeah.
So this is the first 3 that are going to be going to Pensacola.
Did you have a time and occasion where you had wrestlers who came to you that said, "Hey, Ron, can I get on the list? Can I be part of the Pensacola thing?" And you had to tell them no?
Oh gosh, man, consistently and constantly. Guys, they knew you were going to have to get talent. They knew you weren't going to take all your Knoxville people. Those guys were over. You were going to probably start with new people.
Yeah.
So they were all coming and asking, Ron, would you consider me?
Yeah.
But I was very picky about this first group because that was going to be people's first impression of Southeastern, that first group of wrestlers that went in there. And so it's kind of like on the very first show, I know people have seen this interview that I did with Charlie Platt, 9 minutes, 10 minutes long. My first impression for fans in Pensacola and in the Southeast down there, you want to make that type of impression because it's going to make all the difference of whether you're going to be successful or you may shut that territory down and say we couldn't build it.
Are you talking about the sound bites that we use on your actual opener?
There you go.
Oh yeah. Okay. God, that's legendary. Wow.
That type of interview, it was so important that everybody in your crew make that type of impression.
Yeah.
To be able to ensure success, man, at the box office.
I got my feet propped up on the desk. You got over that day. You got over. That's good. You got over. All right. And listen, Charlie Platt got over too. I tell you what, this is a good place for a break. Let's do that. If I'm correct, we should be coming back with the TV show of Saturday, December 31st, 1977, that promoted this incredible card the following day. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes. All right. And while we're at it, while we take the break, you've got time, head over to Southeastern Rewind on YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell to get reminders. We'll ring the bell when anything hits on Southeastern Rewind to make sure you know it's there and you can check it out. And be sure to tell your friends about Southeastern Rewind. All right. Hey, the stud is back. And we continue in a moment right here. YouTube's Southeastern Rewind is on fire. Continental TV shows are setting records every time a new one is released since Bob Armstrong lost a loser leaves match. His 3 sons are left to fight alone for their family. Number 10, released originally in the summer of 1985, comes to life again Thursday, January 6th of 2022. It continues their road to revenge with the Fuller family and Jimmy Golden. Sunday, January 9th, 2022, features another USA TV release, episode number 21. Scott Armstrong had won the World Junior title from Nelson Royal, and the Riches are still waging war with the RPMs, along with the ever-popular Bullet. Don't miss these great TVs from the past. Plus, Stud Story number 13 about the Stud's father's Easter rodeo of 1958. And Stud Story number 14, the rodeo continues on Saturday, January 8th, where everything that could go wrong did. Subscribe now on YouTube, Southeastern Rewind. Ring the bell and don't miss a minute of the best old school wrestling on YouTube. Welcome back once again. It's David Summers with the Tennessee Stud, Ron Fuller, episode number 231. The Stud is back, y'all, after a little vacation time. Welcome back, Stud.
Thank you. I'm sure glad to be here, my man.
All right, so we took a break right there on the Studcast like we do every week. You didn't take a nap or anything, did you?
No. I tried my best to stay awake during this.
I bet you did last week, though. All right, Ron. So
yeah, I took several of them.
Yeah, I bet you did. How did the TV show on New Year's Eve promote that 2-ring battle royal the next afternoon in the Coliseum? That's cool. That's really huge. You got 2 rings side by side, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
20 by 20 rings.
All right,
Two of them big monster rings.
Yeah, what's the setup on that?
Well, we had a small card on the Christmas afternoon show in Chilhowie Park 6 days before this TV was done. And we intentionally booked it that way because it was in the small Jacobs building at the park. And some wrestlers wanted to go home for Christmas anyway, which was normally the case. And I didn't mind having a small card because the building wouldn't hold a lot of people. And the building sold out anyway. So it was also time to turn our talent over. And that's what happened in most territories around the country. First of the year, every year, a lot of wrestlers change sites. And for whatever reason, so many different reasons. But wrestlers like to move at the first of the year. So new talent's going to be arriving on January 1st afternoon card. And some of the old talent is going to be gone from that card. And two of those older talents that were strong heels are gone. In particular, Bob Orton Jr., and so is the pro, Doug Gilbert, who has had a long run for Southeastern, done a great job. They're gone. So the fact that TV was the day before the Coliseum card worked out well for me because I was able to get several of those guys on the New Year's Day card to come in a little bit early. Told them I wanted to put them on TV, have a look at them, right? And that fact led me to book a very unusual Battle Royal on TV. And that Battle Royal is going to point, obviously, toward the much bigger two-ring Royal the next afternoon. So a Battle Royal on TV, a lot of people say that's a horrible idea. Nobody did it. Well, just because people weren't doing it back in the day doesn't mean it wasn't a good idea. In fact, it was a great way to promote the next day's card. And it also gave fans at home a taste of what a two-ring Battle Royal might look like when they saw a single-ring Royal and all the things that happened in it. Think about what's going to happen with two rings and twice as many wrestlers in it.
Oh, no doubt. So to me, I think it's a great idea. If you're and putting it there on TV, it gets the fans more excited. Fans really loved it. So you gave the TV audience something really special in a special time of year at that.
Well, why not? And I even took it a little bit further. I even thought about it the week before, and I had to announce on the battle that this Battle Royal was going to be the main event on the next TV.
Whoa.
So Saturday before Christmas Day card, he's announcing the next Saturday, be sure and join us because we're going to have a Battle Royal on TV. So this TV show on December 31st, 1977, the last TV of the year, was designed specifically to build interest in the two-ring Battle Royal the next day in the Coliseum.
So were you looking for an opportunity to sell tickets there, Stud?
Yeah, well, you don't want to miss those.
I couldn't resist that.
Man. Heck yeah, I'm looking to sell tickets. You better believe it, So, and like I just mentioned, there were a lot of territories in the world that had never, ever had a Battle Royal on their television. And it didn't just sell tickets to the next day's event for me. It grew my TV audience, and it got my company, that's how we got to be in that 80 share range in that Arbitron and Nielsen rating books.
God.
Because we were doing things nobody else ever did on television, So those kind of numbers, those tickets, those kind of that audience, and that sold tickets forever, man. And it also got you on just about any TV station in the country, man. So bear in mind, Dave, I was now going to be out there trying to get on the best TV stations in another part of the country I wasn't familiar with, down there around Pensacola along the Gulf Coast. And I'm going to take this television show that we made that's got a Battle Royal on it. I'm going to take it right south with me, man, to show these people these TV stations.
Oh, no doubt. So what all did you have on that last Southeastern TV of 1977?
Well, besides that Battle Royal, man, I had the Mongolian Stomper defending his Southeastern Championship belt, managed by Gorgeous George Jr., against a very great little star, Ricky Gibson, man. I knew they were going to tear the house down. Then I had another match on there with Don Carson, the Assassin, the tag champion, Southeastern belts, managed by Ron Wright, against Tony Charles and Roy Lee Welch. Another I knew would be a spectacular match. So then I really took it to the next step. I had an entire personality profile done outside the studio. It was recorded in the Knoxville Coliseum the morning of the TV show. So it began with Les outside, those two 20 by 20 foot rings. They were sitting side by side in that empty Coliseum. I shot it with two cameras, one down there with him at ringside and another shooting from up above to show what those two rings look like and all those empty ringside seats, just setting the stage, man, for what was about to happen the next day. So Les explained in depth as he walked around both the rings how a two-ring triple chance battle royal worked. And that was important because it was a totally different type of battle royal. It needed to be explained properly. And it went something like this, Les started out with everyone starts in ring one. He's standing in ring one. He goes, this is ring one. Everybody, all of them, all 20 are going to be in ring one. And as they're eliminated from this ring, they have to be thrown into that ring. He's pointing at the second ring that's right next to the one he's standing in. And then he goes, when two men are left in this ring is done. Those two stay in the ring. And then the battle royal continues in the second ring. And then he crawls through the ropes into the second ring. And he continues to explain it, that now this ring is where all the action is. And most of the men are in here. And to be eliminated here, they only have to be thrown out of this ring, not into any other, back into the first ring, but just out of this ring on any of the three sides. And they are eliminated. And when it's just two guys left in the second ring, then they're going to bring these two guys into ring one. And the winners of that tag match between the four of them is going to split the $10,000 money. Then
Wow.
Les interviewed Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden, who had just returned that day. And Joe LeDuc in the ring one, and got their thoughts and strategy for this unique kind of event. And when he finished with them, he crawled in the ring too, and there's Ronnie Garvin, Don Carson, the Assassin, and Ron Wright, and they tell their ideas and their game plan for winning this $10,000. So the profile went more than 10 minutes, but wow, it was so captivating, man. It seemed like it took half that long when I watched it back. It was like, I thought, man, this is going to be long, but wow, it was extremely interesting. Not just for the fans, but for those with little wrestling knowledge. It was going to be perfect for TV station management that had very little wrestling experience. They're going to hear this. They're going to see those two rings. They're going to see that empty building. And then to really cap it off, to really give them the impression of how big wrestling was when they watched this program, we opened this segment with last year's two-ring battle royal, 20 seconds of it live with 5,000 plus people in the building.
Holy cow. All right. So I'm kind of bright a little bit, but a light bulb went off because I see what's happening here. Your Southeastern Pensacola TV strategy is underway. And listen, you're P.T. Barnum in this case, because this TV show is going to be a demo tape for TV stations all along the Gulf Coast. It's filled with stars, championship matches, and a unique event that is going to grab the attention immediately of even non-fans of any sport, but especially wrestling, like TV managers for some stations. It's going to grab their attention, and they're seeing numbers go up, and they're seeing dollar signs.
You get sharper, Dave, every week, man. I tell you.
I'm going to take a bow. Thank you. Thank you.
You deserve it. I also made sure that this TV, just to add to it, Dave, I also made sure by talking to the director, Bill Kincaid, I said, Bill, I want to have at least one split screen in this show. I want to have great instant replays on every match. I want to show interviews done from both studios, and I want the three-sided set to be rotated and everyone to see it happen at least once in the show. So the TV show finished with the 10-man battle royal that lasted through two segments of the show. The winner of the single ring battle royal got $3,000, and it was presented to him in the ring at the end of the show.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty cool and immediate payoff. So I'll bet that TV not only worked to sell tickets the next day in the Coliseum, Ron, but I'm pretty sure that it was even more effective in selling the Southeastern Pensacola TV show to TV stations also that you wanted to be on. So how did the matches on New Year's Day, 1978 in Knoxville go?
Well, Robert Fuller and Thunderbolt Patterson, they won by disqualification, but obviously they couldn't win the belts in that way. They beat the Southeastern Tag Champions. They had their hands raised, but they didn't actually beat them. And so the champions, Don Carson and the Assassin, managed by Ron Wright, held on to their belts, and mostly it was because of Ron Wright's interference that they did that. So Joe LeDuc and the Mongolian Stomper had a tremendous Southeastern Championship match that this one had to be stopped again, which was not unusual for the matches that these two had. Joe LeDuc came back in the Battle Royal, still bleeding from his title match. But neither the Stomper or Gorgeous George Jr., who were supposed to appear in the Battle Royal, came for the Battle Royal. So Joe LeDuc, being the man that he usually was, showed back up even for the Royal, still bleeding from the match that he had just prior to it.
Okay, so let's focus on one guy in particular. I noticed he was in the Battle Royal, Ron. I have to ask about the Sheik. You had wrestled for him in Detroit about 2 weeks before this Battle Royal, if I'm correct. Just a few days after that Detroit match, you confirmed the deal with Lee Fields to buy Gulf Coast Wrestling. So how did it all come about?
Well, yep, you're correct about it. I did go to Detroit on December the 18th, 1977. And I had scheduled that match to go there much earlier in the year when I first started talking about the Sheik, his territory. And I had the idea on this, the 18th of December, of being able to sit down with Eddie Farhat, who is the actual Sheik's name, and trying to finalize the deal to buy Ohio. During the course of that night and that discussion, I figured out really quickly that there was no sale to be made there, that I couldn't do business with him. And but I invited him, and I was already there anyway, and I had this Battle Royal coming up in 2 weeks. I invited him to come to Tennessee and wrestle on the Battle Royal for me in Knoxville. And I didn't expect him to accept it, but he jumped at it. And, you know, I think he'd heard a lot about Southeastern and about the territory, and he kind of probably wanted to come and see for himself what the hell's going on down there, how they doing all that business down there.
Right.
You know, so he only worked in the Battle Royal, and he was a lot less recognizable to our fans than I anticipated. I thought I wanted to watch his introduction because I wanted to see if the fans knew who he was. And I got a lot less recognition than I anticipated. In fact, he got a lot less reaction than some of the other relative unknown 5 or 6 guys that were also in the Royal. So I'm sure he was somewhat upset with the low-level crowd reaction to his introduction, you know, and he didn't get the respect I guess he thought he was going to get from the crowd, and he didn't get it in the dressing room either. And you know, not from the Southern crew that most of these wrestlers were. You know, they knew who the Sheik was, but they weren't impressed either. And you know, and oddly enough, I never saw Eddie Farhat, the Sheik, ever again after that night and that afternoon in Knoxville.
Y'all didn't bow down to the Sheik? Okay. All right.
No. That's. Yeah, I think he kind of did the bowing mostly.
Yeah, that's and I know because he was unknown, but to me that it sounds kind of unusual today because obviously he's one of the premier names from way back when. All right, so what happened in that huge Battle Royal? What went down?
Well, as I said earlier, Joe LeDuc came to the ring for the Royal. And he was still bleeding from his last match that had just ended a few minutes before the Battle Royal started. So he and Ronnie Garvin, who were basically lifetime enemies, really, you know, both from that Montreal area. I don't know really what it was, all that heat between them was, but they really had problems. They ended up as the last 2 wrestlers in Ring 1. they're going to end up partners, basically, in the tag match to come. Don Carson, the assassin, ended up the last two guys in ring 2. So then Carson and the assassin come into ring 1. They announce the participants. They announce that the winners are going to get $5,000 each check. And then, the match got ready to start. Well, now Joe LeDuc has already had his match that Ronnie Garvin didn't have, an earlier match. And now he's bleeding. And when it came time to start the match, Ronnie Garvin gets out on the floor and refuses to start. So he puts an already bleeding Joe LeDuc, who's now wrestled twice, in the ring to represent his team to try to get this $10,000. So, and then strangely enough, wasn't odd though. I guess people probably expected this from Ronnie Garvin at this point, but Joe LeDuc got in trouble pretty quickly in the match. He's in against Carson and the Assassin, the tag team champions, and they beat him up pretty good, man. And then he came to Garvin, and Garvin jumped off the apron, refused to tag him. So, so you can imagine the fans, they're not too happy with what's going on here between Garvin and Joe LeDuc.
Right.
So by late in this match, and Joe just kept hanging in there because he was all heart. He was just all heart, man. And he was bloody down to his waistband. And finally, toward the end of this, he makes a comeback by himself against the two guys that he's been in there with the entire match. He throws Carson out of the ring. He lays the assassin out with a big punch, and he covers him for the win. So his partner, Garvin, decides to make his only move that he's made of the entire match. So as the referee's counting out the assassin with Joe LeDuc laying on top of him, Ronnie Garvin climbs up on the top rope and jumps off in LeDuc's back.
No, he did not. Why am I not surprised?
Well, and the referee raised LeDuc's hand because he had already counted the assassin out, thank God, before Garvin jumped in LeDuc's back. So the ref raised LeDuc's hand, who was still laid out, unconscious on the mat. And the crowd, boy, roared their approval, and then, when he raised Garvin's hand, boy, that building shook, man, from the boos from the crowd. It was like they hated him worse than ever. So, the referee then got the 2 checks, and he gave Ronnie Garvin his $5,000 check. And then he went over to Joe LeDuc, who's still laying on the mat, and he bent over because, everybody loved Joe LeDuc, man. And he tried to help him to get set up, and he handed him the money. And when he did, then Ronnie Garvin kicked the referee in the back of the head. And he took Joe LeDuc's check. And he left the ring with an army of police, man, escorting him to the dressing room.
Yeah, that's probably for the best. All right, so that's crazy. So that had to make the fans absolutely, completely crazy. How did it had to have been a killer night. How'd you do in attendance?
Oh, geez, man. I think the name of this episode is 1978, started with a bang, and wow, it really did, man. It looked like the Harley race crowd and some of these big monster crowds. 6,100 was the announced attendance. It looked like it was more like 7,000, but it was right up there with that big world championship match between me and Harley that set the all-time record.
Oh, no doubt. Okay, so it sounds like Southeastern success was really marching on. I think it is time. Yes, it is. It's time for the learning tree question today. This one comes from a very nice lady. Her name is Mary Latham. She asked, since you had been in the business for 3 years and had all kinds of figures and totals for those years, did you ever make predictions at the first of the year as to what the next year might produce? For instance, did you make any predictions about 1978 early in that year? And maybe did you make projections as to what was going to happen? Yeah. Projection or prediction, that's a great question. Ms. Latham, you're right about my keeping up with numbers.
and I guess almost every promoter probably did that, an owner of a company, especially if it's concerning his business, and especially dealing with the end of the year and the totals for that year. I kept those numbers always, and I think we just covered that in the number 230, Studcast episode 230, that kind of gave you a final picture of what 1977 looked like. But I never had made any predictions or projections about what the upcoming year was going to do. And I certainly didn't have the guts to make one for this upcoming year of 1978. Maybe I might have been pretty gutsy and took a shot at trying to say, what I expected Southeastern Knoxville to do in early January 1978. It might have been interesting and easier, because I had 3 years of operation to make judgments from in Knoxville. It had been in business for 3 years. I knew the size of all the buildings in every city, been to them many, many times. And then, I might have basically made some kind of reasonable guess maybe about what kind of business I might be able to do that year. But making any kind of guess at all about the new company, Southeastern Pensacola, that would have absolutely made me look ridiculous, I'm sure, because I have to be honest here, Dave, when I talk about this, and I'm almost hesitant to be as real about this as the deal was, but I spent a total of 4 days there making a deal to buy it. I had seen only 3 buildings, the one in Dothan, the arena in Panama City, and the building in Pensacola. I'd not even seen the building in Mobile, Alabama, or Montgomery, Alabama, the 2 largest cities in the territory. And even more scary was the fact that I'd not seen a live event at all. I was there in the last week before Christmas, and many territories closed their offices and ran nothing in that last week before Christmas because business was usually so terrible the week before Christmas, it wasn't worthwhile to do so. So I saw 3 TV stations in those 4 days I spent down there on the Gulf Coast. And I saw them in the TVs in the cities in which I mentioned earlier. I was already there to see the stations. I went to see the buildings, obviously. And I met the management of each of those TVs. I did not meet the Montgomery TV people, nor see the station. In Mobile, Alabama, the largest city in the territory, had lost its TV station months earlier due to the bad ratings.
Wow.
So they didn't even have a TV.
Are you kidding? Wow. So you were looking at purchasing a wrestling company, having never seen a live match anywhere there. You had not even seen the buildings in the largest 2 markets, and the biggest city in the territory had no TV. Good thinking, Ron.
I mean, most people would have said, well, wow, you're an idiot. What did you buy it for? So, basically you hit the nail on the head, Dave. That was the picture on January 1st, 1978 of the future of Southeastern Pensacola as I knew it. So next week, we're going to be doing our today's training on what amount I'm going to be paying for the territory and how we're going to pay for it for this new Southeastern Pensacola Wrestling Company. And I got to thank you, Mary. It was a great question for your question today. And I think you may have opened the door to a pretty smelly mess of mine as far as my due diligence job I did researching Gulf Coast wrestling. But the bottom line here is, and I got to stick with this, Dave, what can we do with this company in 1978 and beyond? That's what's going to be the big question.
And it's all laid out there. Just go ahead and finish the story now, stud. Go ahead. All right, listen, that's awesome. So what a great Studcast to begin 1978. Ron, you got a lot of work to do on this. With this kind of subject matter week after week, it's going to be no doubt the best Studcast year so far. I can't wait for next week. Listen, folks, on YouTube, Southeastern Rewind is where you find everything Ron Fuller Welch, everything, plus Southeastern, Continental, and USA TV wrestling shows. Go there to subscribe, ring the bell icon on YouTube, and you are on board the fastest growing old school YouTube channel anywhere. Every time something new is added to the channel, we will ring your bell. On Facebook, please do not friend request the stud on his Ron Fuller Welch Facebook page. It's crazy that we're saying that, but it has a maximum of 5,000 fans, and the fire marshal came in and said, stop it. That's okay. So it's been full for years. To become friends with Ron on Facebook, go to either his Ron Fuller, the Tennessee Stud, or Ron Fuller Welch author page. Like him, follow him there, and you automatically become friends with a legend that way. All three Facebook pages get the same post and information, so it doesn't matter which one you're on. You're not going to miss anything. On Twitter, follow him as Ron Fuller Welch. Find everything on his website, tnstud.com, tnstud.com. Studcast, they're all there. All the super Studcast are there. His stud store, souvenirs of all kinds, including his tremendous novel, Brutus. Great match videos, DVD sets, a fantastic photo gallery, and so much more. Even T-shirts and even the actual mask that the stud wore. Replicas are available at tnstud.com. All right, Stud, that's a lot that's going on. So you got to stay back in the saddle and keep up with it. So where do we ride next week?
Well, we're going to try to lay the money down, man. Next week's today's training. In fact, we are going to lay the money down, man. And fans are going to get the inside scoop, something never done on normal podcasts. I can tell you very few of them will ever talk about the money. We're going to talk about the money next week because I want to lay the foundation here for this establishing of Pensacola as a tremendous territory. And I want to take the fans on the true ride with me the entire way. So something, fans are going to find out how much money was paid and how it was going to be paid out. And for Southeastern Pensacola by me and by my new partners, who I've already discussed, my brother, Jimmy Golden, Roy Lee Welch, and Bob Armstrong. So we'll break down the next big Southeastern Knoxville Coliseum show where Joe LeDuc and Ronnie Garvin are going to wrestle this time for the $10,000 Battle Royal money that Garvin left the ring with. And this time we're going to find out who's going to walk out with the whole $10,000. So Tony Charles experiences his first Texas death match ever. He's going to wrestle against his Texan foe man for all these World Junior title matches, Nelson Royal. They're wrestling in a Texas death match. Should be a great one. We'll begin the discussion of who's going to be a good fit to go down and wrestle in the rings of Southeastern Pensacola and who's going to be there for that company's opening night. And we'll answer another great Learning Tree question from a fan and lots more. And obviously, I want to thank everybody, man, for joining us again in January of 2022. We're going to be talking about 1978, and this is going to be, by far, I think, the best Studcast year yet. Please tell your friends and neighbors about us to take care of yourselves and others, and may God bless us all.
Hey, God bless you too, Stud. For Ron Fuller in the Great Smoky Mountains, I'm David Summers saying thank you for listening. Find me at davidsummersproductions@gmail.com. This Studcast is a David Summers production for Tennessee Stud, LLC.
Thanks for joining us today for this historic Studcast. The true story continues next week. So full Nelson your friends and point them in our direction for another ride with the Tennessee Stud.
1, 2, 3.
This is David Summers saying so long from the Great Smoky Mountains.